Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 172, Hiru. An internal strife. Fei Sheng subconsciously thought. They were already fighting tooth and nail on the other side. Lei Jing's old injuries had yet to heal and he was at present having difficulty parrying the other man's savage attacks. All he could do was to keep dodging. In the midst of blows being traded by the two opposing sides of scorpions in the cramped private room, Shen Zequan saw scimitars and piked daggers. Fei Sheng was itching to take action. He wanted to make up for the humiliation suffered earlier today and reclaim the dignity of the Jin Yue who had been making mistakes after mistakes. Heaven did not fail him, it arranged such a dog-eat-dog scene to give him a helping hand. He drew out his Xiaochun blade and said, "Master, let's take this opportunity to take down Lei Jing and put him on trial." "What's the hurry?" Shen Zequan said at his own pace. "They're giving us a monkey show." Fei Sheng originally did not understand, but then he saw how nervous Lei Jing looked, and the latter did not seem like the person who planned this. Both sides were equal in numbers and the sound of things shattering during their fight persisted as glazed lamps and jade vases were smashed to pieces. He observed carefully and noticed that Lei Jing was already showing signs of intention to retreat. It was pandemonium downstairs, but after the thick smoke dispersed, all became still and quiet again. The lanterns were raised as usual, with huge, glazed palace lanterns of various dazzling patterns hanging in the center of the main hall. The dead maidservants and attendants were all disposed of, and even the blood stains on the ground were wiped clean. With a lift of the curtain at the back, a new batch of maidservants came pouring in bearing trays in their hands. They picked up those overturned tables and chairs and pulled the various merchants back into position with smiles and chatters. A bronze gong suddenly sounded, and the attendant that they had initially seen in the pawn shop stepped onto the stage in his new robe. He struck the gong he was carrying in his hand a few more times and announced in a loud, clear voice, "Mount Luo's chief of bandits, Lei Jing versus Dun Province's little scorpion, Haragu. Tonight, when martial arts expert meets another martial arts expert, who will live and who will die? Gentlemen, place your bets." Fei Sheng did not expect such a turn in the course of events. Even though he was used to seeing all kinds of unpredictable and tumultuous situations in Chu capital, he still blurted out in shock, "They are betting on people's lives?" The bamboo blinds in the fifth-floor rooms were promptly lifted to reveal the wealthy merchants relaxing in their seats, drinking their tea, waving their fans, and smoking their pipes. Lei Jing wanted to leap out of the window to make his escape, only to realize that the window in particular had been nailed shut. "I've long heard that the young master of the Yan clan doesn't do anything that doesn't profit him," Shen Zequan said, "to think he could do such roaring business too when it comes to such a trade." The screen in the private room was cleared aside, and the swift sounds of abacus beads being flicked rang out like the pelting of rain. The other man grinned. Men flock together and part ways for the sake of their own interests, even blood brothers still have to settle their accounts clearly. One ought to make the most of things at their disposal. Having said that, he stopped what he was doing and held onto the windows to poke his head over and give Fei Sheng the once-over. He winked at Shen Zequan and said with a smile, "It's not easy to find a Jin Yue. This gentleman seems to me to be dignified in appearance and of the right stature. I can take him to Madame Qiang later as an apology. My lordship, sell him to me, will you?" On hearing him point out Shen Zequan's identity with just one sentence, Fei Sheng could not help but tighten his grip on his blade and stand before Shen Zequan to shield him. This man was only 3 or 4 years older than Ding Tao. He had a childish air about him, and he was fair-skinned and exquisite-looking, with eyes that seemed to be soaked in honey. He looked particularly likable. Lei Jing, who was on the opposite end, saw him and flew into a rage. Holding himself back with great difficulty, he asked, "Why did the young master deceive me? You'd rather offend Geedle for the sake of a couple of scorpions. Geedle is far away on the eastern side of the Hashi River." Yan Hiru retracted his head and said, Your maternal uncle owes me 580,000 taels of silver, while you owe me 340,000 taels of silver. Isn't it only right and proper for you to pay off your debts? Lei Jing snapped the chair's leg broken and did his utmost to dodge the sudden glint from the blade. He suffered a setback in Xiao Qiye's hands the last time and had to rely on Li Xiong to escape by the skin of his teeth. Now he found himself encircled once again, except this time he had played right into the hands of his own people. Yan Hero leaned over the railings and swung his legs as he watched Lei Jing fight for his life. He shouted towards those downstairs, "A battle between formidable foes of equal strength is a rare sight to behold, so put up your names to register yourselves and take your hands off after placing your bets. Double your profit if you win, and if you make a loss treat it as post-meal entertainment. As long as you're in Dun province, this Yan Hero will not let anyone walk out of here a broke man without even a pair of pants to cover his ass." Lei Jing was trapped in a deadly battle for his life. He had only brought along 30 men because he had been a fool to believe Yan Hero's lies. Now that Lei Jing had the support of the Bianchi cavalry along with 400 scorpions stationed in Dun province, Yan Hero would have to show him due respect as long as he still intended to run his business in the east. But for all his scheming, Lei Jing had never expected Shen Zequan to be the person who had seized the military supplies. The iron cage in the hall was already up by now. Both Lei Jing and the scorpions in the other camp had suffered heavy casualties, with more than half of their men wounded and dead. Lei Jing spoke to the man that had come to assassinate him in Bianchi tongue, "Haragu, we are all brothers from Geedle, so why fight each other to the death here? Join forces with me to get out of this predicament tonight, and I will not pursue what happened to that batch of military supplies." But the other man did not respond and swept his seaweed-like hair back before pulling out his pike dagger to pounce on Lei Jing. Yan Hero spoke as he poured the wine, "Is your lordship not curious how I knew you'd come? Luer's informants all come with their own prices." Shen Zequan peeled an orange and brought it to his mouth. "As long as the money is good enough, any news can change hands and be resold." Yan Hero laughed again. "It sounds like I'm not smart enough when you put it this way, but I actually got an inkling right away. Hui province's miscellaneous grains other than rice and wheat to the east have all gone into Tse province's granaries. There's no one else capable of taking them out in such large quantities other than you, Shen Zequan." "What a coincidence then," Shen Zequan said, "to be meeting you here." "Don't be so modest," Yan Hero spoke. "Your lordship is here to lie in wait for the opportunity to present itself, aren't you? I truly find it strange. How did you know that the person Lei Jing invited tonight was me?" Shen Zequan finished up the orange before continuing. Lei Jing's trip to Dun province this time to search through the goods surely offended all the merchants, yet the Yan clan didn't step forth to obstruct him. This suggests that both parties have been keeping each other in the know. In that case, he would have to invite you over for a drink, wouldn't he? He can also seize the opportunity to mend his relationship with the Yan clan. What's not to like about that? For that purpose, he even went as far as to select a restaurant owned by the Yan clan as a show of sincerity to you. Delighted, Yan Hero commended, "You're so smart." Yan Hero placed his interests first and foremost in everything he did, yet he appeared to be especially innocent and naive as he held that heavy golden abacus in his bosom, looking all like a child god of wealth. If it weren't for him being adorned with gold and jade from head to toe, Fei Sheng would never have been able to guess that he was the current head of the Yan clan had he been walking down a street. On the other side, Lei Jing was already fatigued from the fight when he saw yet another wave of men rushing up from below. They were vastly outnumbered and trapped in this private room. Lei Jing was unwilling to yield, and the scorpions in the back smashed the window panels with their elbows. The night breeze immediately drifted in from the outside. Lei Jing did not make the first move. He merely watched as the scorpion who had created the opening stuck his head out, only to meet with calamity right in the face. In the blink of an eye, his head had been chopped off. Yan Hero grunted. "This is my restaurant. You leave when I tell you to leave, and you stay when I tell you to stay. It was teeming with people both inside and out. The circle of men surrounding Lei Jing shrunk as they closed in on him. All the merchants at the foot of the building were men who acted depending on the individual in question. So, when they saw that Lei Jing was no longer in the position to turn the tables, they hurried to follow in Yan Hiru's footsteps and place their bets against Lei Jing. All of them were waiting for him to die. The atmosphere started to heat up with restlessness. Qiang clutched at her handkerchief, not bashful in the slightest, as she removed all the bracelets on her arms and bet it all on Haraguo. She had long forgotten about her eldest nephew, Lei Jing. Shenzhequan abruptly asked. Did you scheme to kill Lei Jing because you knew I was in Dun province? A bored stiff Yan Hiru answered, that's right. I have to go where the wind blows. The trade route between Huai province, Tse province, and Sha province is kind of interesting. There's even the Libei armored cavalry for added security, and you can get a ride up to the frontier trade market if you head up. Imagine if we join forces, the 3 territories in the northeast of Great Zhou will be as good as ours, yes. I can keep a chokehold on Qidong's military provisions for you, and you can take me along for the ride. Each with our own needs. As he spoke, he switched his posture. The way I see it, you are aiming for the Chu capital. You have a bright future full of limitless possibilities ahead of you. So, I see. Shenzhequan rose to his feet and motioned for Fei Sheng to get his cloak. Yan Hiru rocked his chair as he looked at the shadows and wondered in puzzlement. The show isn't over yet, and the man has yet to be slaughtered, so why are you leaving already? Don't you want Lei Jing's head? Shenzhequan secured his cloak and looked back. There's no one to mind those 400 scorpions, is there? Yan Hiru answered, your lordship is here. Get your Tse province garrison troops to annihilate them. Then I'll have to apologize. Shenzhequan said with a smile. I brought only a dozen or so people with me. The words had only just left Shenzhequan's mouth when the doors to the main hall suddenly crashed open. Yan Hiru craned his neck for a look. Scorpions filled the area outside, and they had even taken out the last remaining head cart in the armory. Lei Jing leaped onto the railing and let loose a short whistle to signal his scorpions to attack. The men outside the building were all martial pugilists Yan Hiru bought over with money, but pitting them against the scorpions who were specifically trained to fight battles with the Libei armored cavalry was no different from throwing an egg against a rock. In no time, their broadswords and daggers were all flung away by the hammers. A crash rang out from the private room as a chair overturned. Yan Hiru bunched up his robe and climbed to his feet with the golden abacus in his arms, intending to flee. The moment he opened the door, he bumped into Fei Sheng. Fei Sheng lifted him up by the back of his collar, and as both of his legs left the ground, Yan Hiru cried out, "What the hell? We're on the same side." Yan Hiru's guards tried to seize him back, but the Jin Yue had already risen with their blades drawn. Shenzhequan said, "Let's leave together. We can get to know each other on the way." Unable to break free, Yan Hiru could only let Fei Sheng carry him downstairs like a quail, although he did not forget to yell, "Haraguo, we're leaving. Come on." Chaos descended upon the hall once again. The Biancha scorpions did not give a damn about anything else and simply swung their hammers to smash anyone they came across with. Qiang watched as blood and brain matter spurted out of the head of the person in front of her and splattered all over her. Rattled, she held onto the table for support and recalled the savagery of the Biancha cavalry as they massacred the city several years ago. She could not help but shriek as she scrambled backward in an attempt to dodge. "Eldest nephew, save me." There was complete mayhem at the foot of the building, and the exit was completely blocked off. With Yan Hiru in tow, Fei Sheng stopped on the third floor and kicked the window of the private room open before stuffing Yan Hiru out. Yan Hiru shut his eyes and yelled in the wind, "Stop! I'm your master." The martial pugilists who were still standing guard outside the building hurriedly kept away their blades. The wind whistled past. Yan Hiru opened his eyes with some difficulty and said resentfully, "What the heck did you come here for when you didn't bring your troops?" Fei Sheng said to Shenzequan, "Master, there is a shop down from this place, and our carriage lies across the street from it." The moment Yan Hiru heard it, he clung onto the window and shook his head hard. "I'm not going this way. I don't know martial arts." Shenzequan could not be bothered to waste his breath on him, and so with a lift of his leg, he kicked Yan Hiru down. Wind filled Yan Hiru's wide-open mouth as he plummeted down with his arms and legs flailing as he watched himself plunging right towards the ground. The fabric tarp at the top of the shop suddenly sank from the weight, but it did not rip apart. With one hand lifting Yan Hiru, Fei Sheng climbed the ledges of the building with an arm and swung in the air for an instant before leaping off with Yan Hiru and landing on his feet. The Jin Jiu were all lithe and dexterous men, and this move did not take them much effort to execute. The moment Fei Sheng landed, he tossed Yan Hiru to his subordinate, took 2 swift steps back, and shouted, "Master!" Shenzequan landed deftly on the eaves and stepped on Fei Sheng's shoulder with help from the fabric tarp before landing on the ground as well. All hell broke loose as the sound of slaughter in the building rose through the roof. Fei Sheng did not dare to confront the scorpions head-on, so the moment Shenzequan was sent into the carriage, he waved his hand in a signal to retreat. The Jin Jiu moved swiftly and drove into the busy streets in the blink of an eye. Lei Jingji pushed the windows open, but there was already no trace of Yan Hiru to be seen. He pounded his fist against the window in a fury and turned around to continue speaking in Bianxia tongue, "Don't let these traitors go." ******. It was silent all around when the horse carriage came to a stop. Yan Hiru clung close to the wall of the carriage, covering his chest with his hands as he pleaded. "If nothing else, we can talk it over and the prices are all negotiable." "Your lordship, don't get mad." Shenzequan took off his jiang hat and tossed it aside, then said to Fei Sheng, who stood outside, "Lift the curtain." Fei Sheng lifted the carriage's curtains, and a turbid smell immediately drifted out of the carriage. Fei Sheng thought there was something wrong with the scent, and Yan Hiru followed up with a shy, embarrassed smile, "Whenever I get anxious, I'll feel like farting." The Jin Jiu outside immediately started coughing. Shenzequan let loose a laugh, and Yan Hiru promptly felt a chill run down his spine. He pedaled his legs to squeeze against the wall of the carriage, and heard Shenzequan say in a gentle tone, "Strip him." My mother was right. Yan Hiru was now anxious. Good-looking men are all beasts. Don't do this. I don't swing that way." Fei Sheng held down the back of Yan Hiru's head and stripped him in no time, although he fortunately left his pair of pants untouched. The nights in Dun province during the 8th month were chilly, and Yan Hiru, being such a delicate and fair-skinned lad, was so freezing cold that his teeth chattered and caused him to stutter. Fei Sheng said, "Master, there's no scorpion tattoo on him." Shenzequan slowly folded his arms and went straight to the point as he looked at Yan Hiru. "What's your relationship to the scorpions?" Yan Hiru rubbed his arm and blinked his pair of doe eyes hard. "Why are you asking me this?" "Your lordship, that's not right. You should be asking what your relationship to the scorpions is." Shenzequan's eyes were unfathomably deep as he asked, "What's my relationship to the scorpions?" After a few moments of silence in the carriage, Yan Hiru answered innocently, "I have no idea." Shenzequan continued, "Fei Sheng." Fei Sheng reached out to drag Yan Hiru out. Upon seeing this, Yan Hiru started to struggle to get up. "I really don't know." Haragu. "You tell him." A man tumbled out from behind the horse carriage and fell to the ground panting. It was the man who first attempted to assassinate Lei Jingji earlier. With his prominent nose and deep-set eyes, he had the distinct appearance of a Bianxia native, but he had black hair and black eyes, and the contours of his face were much softer than Huhlu's and Hassan's. As he turned over, he revealed the scorpion tattoo at the side of his neck. Haragu was wounded. Although he was covered in wounds, he looked at Shenzequan behind the flashes of swords and answered in a low, Deep voice, son of Getal. End chapter. Note, a head cart is a complex siege weapon. Qiang Jin Jiu. Book 2, Other Heroes of Chaos. Chapter 173, Black and White. This was the second time Shenzhequan heard of Getal. Getal was located to the east of Hashi River and it fell under the jurisdiction of Bianchis territory. It was initially the temporary site of residence for the Zongbo bandits. Shenzhequan was pretty sure he had never been there before. His understanding of Getal was limited to the Baicha portrait that Li Xiong had mentioned once before. Going by the way Harigu meant it, Shenzhequan could also call himself a son of Zongbo. We are all sons of Getal. Harigu stood up, his eyes alert as his gaze wandered among the Jinyue. He lifted a hand gently and said, "We have a reason to sit down for a chat. My brother died on the battlefield." Shenzhequan was unmoved. "Before you make yourself clear, we are enemies. Your enemy is the Biancha cavalry." Harigu tightened the bandage around his wound. "I'm the enemy of your enemy. We can be friends." "Sure, friend," Shenzhequan said. "What do you want to talk to me about?" Harigu pursed his pale lips and paused for a moment before saying, "We can join forces to kill Lei Zhengzhi." Moonlight streaked across the shadow of the carriage. Shenzhequan's expression was cold and detached. He could not even be bothered to answer, but his meaning was clear. If Harigu continued to beat about the bush without explaining himself clearly, then he would not deign to give him any response. "I know that the Emperor of Great Zhou is dead and that it's the Emperor's mother who is managing the governmental affairs now. You were driven out of Chu capital and then you fled back to Zongbo. You want to exact revenge, and you hope you can stage a comeback." Harigu looked at Shenzhequan with a complicated expression. "You are swallowing up Zongbo right now." With his elbows propped on his knees, Shenzhequan stuck his face out from the shadows and looked down from above at Harigu. "Your information is too detailed." Harigu kept his hands raised as though he was pacifying some kind of beast and said, "This is information that I have to dig out if I am to survive in Zongbo. Please do not take offense. You have already erected your own city walls in the west, and now you want to head east and take back Dun province, Duan province, and even the Hashi sinkhole. But Lei Zhengzhi is standing in your way, and it will be very troublesome for you if you can't kill him. Brother, I want to kill him too, so we can join forces." Shenzhequan raised a finger and pointed to the side of his neck. "You both have the same tattoo." "Because we are all sons of Getal." Harigu repeated this phrase. "Lei Zhengzhi is a white scorpion. They are all men from Great Zhou who have defected to Amu'er." As Harigu spoke, he spread his upper garment open to reveal the scorpion tattoo on the side of his neck. "I'm a black scorpion." Fei Sheng observed it carefully and said, "There's no difference at all between your tattoos. We don't tell each other apart by our tattoos." Harigu explained. "The tattoos are just markers that the Biancha people use to distinguish those from Getal with the others. Getal lies within Biancha's borders and it falls under the control of the Liaoying tribe in its early days." Shenzhequan said. "So what's the difference between you people and the Biancha people? If you understand how the Liaoying tribe was before, then it will occur to you why we are being differentiated from the others." Harigu put on his clothes. Before the Liaoying tribe had Amu'er, they were eagle slaves from the various major tribes. The Getal that was under their control was even more lowly. The bandits of Zongbo did business in Getal by selling women, and these women were very popular with the various major tribes such as the noble Hanshi tribe, who in particular, was very fond of women from Great Zhou. But they were besieged. Fei Sheng tossed a water canteen to Harigu. These bandits ran rampant along the Hashi River and the women from decent families in Duan province suffered greatly. The Zhu clan, unable to deal with the disturbance, reported it to Shenwei and requested for Dun province to deploy troops for assistance. The commander of the Dun province garrison troops, Tan Tai Long, promptly sent his troops to fight their way to Getal and crush these bandits. but the respite was temporary. Haragu took the canteen. Those bandits had the protection of the Liaoying tribe. They threw in their lots with the Liaoying tribe and became the Liaoying tribe's slaves, but they were never respected. They became the lowest class of people amongst the 12 tribes of Biancha and continued to round up women for the people of Biancha. These women were sent to the various tribes, where they became exchangeable commodities. Tantai Long failed to eradicate the bandits completely, and it did not take long for them to return to Gidal, where they established their base. The children born to the women from Great Zhou were called Wumengyun. Haragu tugged at his black hair. That is, bastard in Great Zhou's tongue. These bastards could not exist in the various major tribes, as they would carve out a portion of the purebred cattle and sheep when they grew up. So, the various tribes drown them in the Hashi River, or throw them back to Gidal. Fei Shen, having been born of the Fei clan, was unable to comprehend the rationale behind this move. These children all carry the blood of the various tribes. Even if their mothers are not honorable enough, there's no need to go to the extent of drowning them, is there? Do you know Hassan? That's the son Amuer truly acknowledged. The 12 tribes are different from Great Zhou. In the desert, women take charge of childbearing in the tribe and even the distribution of cattle and sheep. They are indispensable to the survival of the tribe and are capable of standing on an equal footing with men. It takes an honorable mother to decide the future direction of a child. Amuer has so many sons, and there are plenty of smart ones among them, but the moment they were born, they all lost the qualification to fight for power with Hassan, and this is precisely because Hassan's mother is the most honored and respectable woman in the Hanshi tribe. Her role in Amuer's formation of the elite forces in the north is indispensable. Haragu took a few sips of water and continued. Bastards are unworthy of taking on the surnames of the tribes, and so we were branded with a tattoo along with the bandits. Shenzekwan made some inferences from the timeline and said, since you are distinguished between black and white, then you must each have your own uses. You have to understand one thing first. The so-called scorpion is a form of address that came about after Amuer's rise to prominence. Before Amuer's time, Gidal was a place where the bastards lived together. It was only after the rise of Amuer that Gidal was really put to use. White scorpions, with their appearance resembling those of Great Zhou, could infiltrate deep into Great Zhou. Haragu screwed the canteen shut and made a crawling motion with 2 fingers. They can penetrate deep within, and they have played their roles to unimaginable effect in the last 10 years or so. Meanwhile, the black scorpions are left behind in Gidal, where Amuer gives us the best teachers to train us to be strong enough to stand up to the Libe armored cavalry. Mutual assistance between black and white, you were helping each other. Realization dawned on Shenzekwan. There are no iron mines in the desert. To equip yourselves with that kind of hammer, you'd have to steal it from Great Zhou. That's right. Haragu tossed the canteen back. The white scorpions secured equipment and grains for us from within Great Zhou. Other than those, there were military maps, too. The military map of the 6 prefectures of Zongbo. Whose information did Amuer act on 6 years ago when he attacked Zongbo? Haragu spread his hands apart and said, I don't know. I wasn't involved. But I can tell you that Amuer has countless inextricable links to Chu capital. The defeat of the Zongbo troops was merely a trial run to test the waters, and it proved to be remarkably effective. Libe was held in check, and the repercussions are still being felt a few years later with the subsequent disintegration of Great Zhou. Fei Shen inwardly drew in a breath and looked at Shenzekwan in shock. Why do you call me a son of Gidal? The jade earring on Shenzekwan's right ear glinted. Haragu inclined his head and said, because Bai Cha split. Haragu had yet to finish his words when an arrow fired in secret pierced through the wind with a swoosh and stabbed into the carriage. Yan Hiru, who had been too afraid to make a sound and who had been hanging in mid-air playing dead, promptly yelled, they are here. Fei Shen immediately yanked the curtains down and commanded, get on the horses. The carriage charged into the darkness of the night under the escort of the Jin Yue, while Yan Hiru was thrown back into the carriage. The downtown streets of Dun Province were wide and spacious. The Yan clan had expanded it to facilitate the smooth passage of the various merchants' carriages. At present, the streets were bustling with activity, with carriages coming and going in never-ending streams. Yan Hiru tripped all over the place as he put on his robe and said in a hurry, "Head for the Prince of Jiangxing's manor." I tore down the former site of the Prince of Jiangxing's manor and reconstructed a private residence in its place. There are 100 or so compound guards in there. Fei Sheng promptly turned the horses around. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The glazed tiles of the Prince of Jiangxing's manor had long been torn down. After Shen Wei's self-immolation, all that was left of this place was its dilapidated ruins. Yan Hiru loved the place, so he had reconstructed it into a private residence modeled in the style of those in Chu capital. A tall building with double-eaves roofs had been built within this residence, and if one were to stand on top of it, they would get a panoramic view of Dun Province. Fei Sheng carefully surveyed the manor before he entered. He found Yan Hiru rather strange. The latter had actually built a wall of bricks on the outer layer and knocked down a hole in the wall to install bows and arrows, with the mechanism connected to the parapet. Looking at just how thick the wall was, it could even stand up to an assault from a stone catapult. As businessmen, we fear being targeted in the dark and stabbed in the back. There are plenty of unscrupulous people who would do these kind of underhanded deeds. I cherish my life. It surely stands to reason for me to have a safe haven in Dun Province, and I won't feel at ease if I don't construct an impregnable fortress. Yan Hiru invited Shen Zequin upstairs. This place is known as Fuxian Peak. It's a tall one. Your lordship, please come with me upstairs to have some drinks and enjoy ourselves. We'll see how that silly fool Lei Jingzhi gets all distraught with anxiety and frustration outside. Fei Sheng could not hold back from asking, "Aren't you scared he'll fight his way in to hack your head off?" Yan Hiru turned his head back from atop the stairs and looked at Fei Sheng with a brilliant smile. "What do I have to fear? A real man isn't afraid of a big scar. At most, my head will roll, but I'd still be a hero again in 18 years. Yan Hiru might have been exceedingly flippant with his words, but he was genuinely unafraid. He was pertinent to the businesses of the merchants from the two prefectures of Zhongbo. So many people depended on him for their livelihoods. Despite having suffered such a massive humiliation tonight, Lei Jingzhi would not dare to kill him for real, because Yan Hiru still had He province as his shield. In reality, Lei Jingzhi's relentless pursuit was directed at Harigu. This little brat was an extremely crafty one. Shen Zequin guessed that the reason Lei Jingzhi and Harigu were embroiled in such a fierce fight with each other in Dun Province was likely because Yan Hiru had been adding fuel to the flame. His past support of Lei Changming failed to reap any results, and it was only due to Lei Changming's respect for him that he could retain the store in Dun Province. If it had been anyone else, this piece of business would have been long gone. For this reason, he was apprehensive about the monopoly on power that Lei Jingzhi's party possessed. As such, he secretly funded Harigu's batch of scorpions to let them mutually hold each other in check until they both eventually had to rely on the Yan clan. The maidservants entered in a single file and lit up the lights in successive order. Thick and heavy draperies were lifted, while pearl-white sheer fabrics were let down to take its place. There was even a small covered veranda hanging with climbing figs and devil's ivy, surrounded by a murmuring stream the width of an arm. An open-air pavilion was erected in the middle of it, adorned with a refined rock garden that sat at an angle. The entire sky of stars seemed to be within reach if one were to just gaze out into the distance from here, along with an unobstructed view of the lantern displays in Dun Province. This building was built for the purpose of ascending high enough to appreciate the view. If you stand here and look far out into the east, you'll be able to marvel at the Hashi River, which mirrors a jade belt in heaven and on earth. This is a magnificent view you cannot find anywhere else. Yan Hiru leaned against the railings and said to Shen Zequin, "It's impossible to leave Dun Province for the time being. Your lordship can go ahead and stay here, and we can discuss business. Shenzequan's cloak fluttered in the wind as he held onto the railing and looked down. He could see Lei Jing's forces coming through the streets. You sure are a dauntless one. Yan Hiru flicked the beads on the golden abacus. Money is king. Lei Jing himself has to call me grandfather. I have nothing to fear. On the other hand, your lordship will be in danger if the Tse province garrison troops are really not coming. I come and go silently. Shenzequan said. It's easy for me to leave if I want to. Bai Cha is the reason you came to Dun province this time. Yan Hiru said to Shenzequan with a smile. Harigo knows everything. You almost got a glimpse of the whole story, so you must be burning with anxiety now, right? Bai Cha's exact relationship to the scorpions is something Harigo knows best. Your lordship, I'm sincere in discussing business with you. As long as you agree, Harigo will be at your disposal. If we join forces to get rid of Lei Jing, occupy the territories in the north and east, and develop the trade route, the silver will come flowing in like water. No. What happened in Cha province will be written off immediately. I will not blame you for Chai Yu's death. Shenzequan bent over to lean against the railing too and laughed. Yan Hiru's smile gradually vanished, and he asked unhappily, what are you laughing at? Lei Jing came here today for Harigo. If you don't hand Harigo over, Lei Jing will settle the score with you. You are now thinking of using a forfeited pawn to trick me into doing business with you. Such a good deal doesn't exist in this world. Shenzequan looked out at the far end of Dun province in the direction of Duan province. The trade route between Huai province, Tse province, and Cha province belongs to me. If you want a share of the pie, you have to first convince me. Yan Hiru fell silent for a moment as he faced the wide expanse of the night, then laughed again. Is your lordship still trying to deceive me at such a juncture? Without your troops now, you are merely a trapped beast. I won't hand over Harigo, but I can hand you over. You plotted to butcher Lei Jing tonight. Going by Lei Jing's character, this feud is as good as already inked in blood. Even if he can tolerate you for a moment for the sake of money, he will never let you off in the future. Moreover, you've already shown your card that is Harigo tonight. Shenzequan tilted his chin up slightly to bathe in the breeze. Even if Lei Jing is willing to bury the hatchet with you, the same can't be said of the 12 tribes of Biancha backing him. Harigo was not one man. He had also brought along a bunch of scorpions who were similarly living a vagabond life in Zongbo. These people hid themselves all over the place, and most of them had defected from Geedle. Yan Hiru had provided them with financial assistance in order to keep Lei Jing in check, and there was no doubt that the 12 tribes of Biancha would be settling this score as well. At least I won't die tonight. Yan Hiru said softly. Then let us just perish together. Shenzequan tapped his icy fingers on the railings. Hand me over to Lei Jing tonight. Once I die, I can wait for you down there in the underworld. After tonight, I have plenty of ways to leave Dun province. Yan Hiru snorted childishly in a loud voice. Then let me tell you this. Shenzequan looked at him out of the corner of his pitch-black eyes. If I die, Dun province and Duan province will die with me. No one will remember Zongbo's lost territories. Chu capital is too preoccupied with its own affairs, and Libei and Kedong can't be in two places at once. This place is a wide-open strategic gateway of Great Zhou that can provide the Biancha cavalry with direct access in. They did not launch an assault in the past 6 years because the granaries in Zongbo had yet to be fattened up. The time is now ripe, and Great Zhou is already torn asunder by disunity. Sooner or later, this place will become the territory of the Biancha people. Xiao Fangxiu will not sit and do nothing. This place has a bearing on Libei's battlegrounds in the southeast. Yan Hiru said quickly. Qizuyan has a well-trained and powerful army, too. You're just trying to scare me. Shenzequan, without you, Zongbo will have just a few more random self-proclaimed kings. the overall situation won't change at all. In that case, Shen Zequan raised his eyebrows slightly. What makes you go to such lengths to discuss things with me? Oh, damn it. Yan Hira bemoaned to himself. To think he had been led by Shen Zequan's words. As they spoke, they heard a thunderous noise beneath them. Yan Hira shifted his gaze over to look and could not help but freeze. Why are there so many people? Ever since stepping foot into Dun province, I've been puzzled by a question. There is clearly a bridle path leading right to Duan province, so why did Lei Jing still forego what is close at hand and seek what is far afield instead? Then, there is his proficient way of searching the goods in the city. My guess is that this isn't the first time he has been robbed. The people hiding here are the thorns in his side. Shen Zequan smiled slightly. Even I could guess that you are the one funding Haragu, so do you really think Lei Jing won't be able to make the same guess? He came prepared this time. That invitation was indeed to lure a snake out of its hole, but the one who took the bait was you. The lanterns on the streets were knocked over as the sounds of horses' hooves flooded in from outside, while the cavalry with no end in sight resembled dark clouds that completely devoured the river of lights from view. The troops Lei Jing had brought over had been hiding outside the city, all for the purpose of getting rid of the mortal malady that was Haragu once and for all. Fei Sheng saw the Saker falcons in the night sky. He briskly walked around the railing and realized that those dark clouds were presently steamrolling across the entire city of Dun province. He doesn't dare to kill me. Yan Hiru involuntarily exposed his panic as he hugged his golden abacus to his bosom and took several steps back. He province. The head cart Lei Jing brought along crashed heavily into the front gates. Unable to withstand such a violent impact, the iron sheet-covered latch on the other end of the door let loose a shrill shriek in protest. Horses snorted and grunted urgently, while circling Saker falcons stirred up the overcast clouds. The starry sky earlier had dimmed, leaving only the wind to continue howling in never-ending torrents. There was no use for scheming in the face of a strong army. These iron hooves had no qualms trampling over the heart of Zongbo once before. Who could say that they couldn't do it again this time? End chapter.